Outdoors Queensland would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands where we gather. I'm in Brisbane, Meanjin, on Yagara country. And if people would like to, feel free to pop in the chat whereabouts you are and what traditional ownership country you're on, if you do know that, if you'd like to do that in the chat feature. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play on the land, sky and waterways used for outdoor activities. And Outdoors Queensland also acknowledges the funding provided by the Queensland Government to support outdoor activities right across our state. But thanks again for joining us for another session of Coffee and Conversation. I'm Dom Courtney, Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland, and Mark Squires is my co-host for today's session, as per usual. I'd like to welcome everyone, particularly members of Outdoors Queensland and others who are joining us. I'm not sure if there's anyone from interstate. Oh, Aaron's there. He's joining us from Melbourne. So, g'day, mate.
Morning, Dom.
And it's great to see you, mate. Thanks for joining us. Just looking at the list, there's a few people on there. So, yeah. We will have recordings of the sessions made available on our website and on YouTube, as we always do. I think we're up to episode 9 today, Mark. So, we're getting there for another year. So, can't believe it's May already. Anyway, it is. Bit of an agenda for today as we go through. More than happy for people to add things in and have a discussion as we go along. So please feel free to add comments into the chat, or just put your hand up. We're a pretty small group today. Maybe people are actually outside enjoying that sunshine that we have for the locals, and yeah, but we'll just go along and see where we get to. So get stuck into it. But yeah, feel free to add comments into the chat, or just put your hand up. Last Friday, we ran a mountain bike forum up at the Sunshine Coast on the banks of Lake Kawana. That was in conjunction with Oz Cycling and supported by Sunshine Coast Council, and it was really positive day. And a big thanks to Mark for emceeing the day and organising so much and keeping us on time, which is always a good sign. And a big thanks to all the speakers and the attendees for contributions throughout the day. Unfortunately, due to the rain on Saturday, the rides and site visits that we had scheduled, or that Kurt really did a lot of work for, Kurt from the Sunshine Coast Council, they ended up being cancelled, which is unfortunate. But yeah, the forum itself, I think, was really well received. I think people got a lot out of it, and they certainly had positive feedback that I had even on the day. So that was great to see, and it was nice to do that in a face-to-face setting. I think we had about, Mark, it must have been about 50 people there on Friday, I think. So yeah, it was really positive. So yeah, it was great to see. We are looking at doing another mountain bike forum in Mackay, in conjunction with Oz Cycling, so we'll get some details out about that shortly for our northern potential attendees. We also, I just wanted to promote to the Active Queenslanders forums. So Active Queenslander Industry Alliance, and I'm on the board there. They've already hosted a couple of forums, one at Toowoomba and at the Gold Coast, and they're going to be running a lot of forums in coming weeks. So Rockhampton, Mackay next week, and then Fraser Coast and Bundaberg. I just saw David said he's g'day from the Moreton Island Ferry, returning from 4 days walking with Years 10. So it'd be an interesting place to join us, David. Oh, look at the video there. It looks awful, mate. We might cross to David for a weather report later on, if you like, mate. I'll come to the Inside the Outhouse session shortly. But yeah, I just wanted to plug the AQAA forums. I've got the dates there on the screen, all the ones coming up. And then there's also, on top of that, Logan, Cairns, Townsville, Gladstone, Sunshine Coast forums will be in July and August. They're free forums. but you need to register for them. And so they have a daytime session and then an evening session as well. So the idea of that is paid staff and then volunteers can come to the evening one. So if you're available, and it wouldn't really matter if you looked at the other ones, just there's a bit more of a focus on the volunteer one for the evening. And they're certainly worthwhile. So check it out on their website, and that they are making an effort to do those up and down the coast, and yes, as widely spread as they can.
Dom, excuse me a minute.
Yes, Mike?
The Moreton Bay workshop is rescheduled to the 15th of June.
Yeah, and I think that's combined with the North Brisbane one. So I think I have that on there, the Brisbane North one. So I think they've combined that one into one forum for the sort of mini region. So yeah, that one didn't happen. There's just I think there was a clash, so they moved the Moreton Bay one. Yeah. Yep. But there's a lot of info on the AQA website. Mark's just shared that link, so thanks, Mike. Just a quick reminder: there's this complaint handling in sport on webinar next week, the 11th of May. That's being provided by Sport and Rec, so worth having a look there. It's really about responding to member complaints or client and customer complaints, and it's particularly for clubs, really. So if anyone's interested in that one, check that out. And Mark's just popped the link in there as well. So yeah, it's just worth a look. It does say sport on it, but it does apply just as much to recreation clubs as well. So it's certainly worth a look, and it's free, which is always good. The 10,000 Steps Challenge, I mentioned this last time. They've partnered with National Parks, or QPWS, to do a challenge themed on national parks. So I just thought we'd mention that. I don't think Anita's on the call today. She joins us every now and again when she can, but I don't think she's here today. So I was just going to see if she wanted to say anything about it. But if you are interested, have a look at that and have a look at their website. Yeah, and I think I said last time, if anyone has any things you'd like to promote that you're doing, 10,000 Steps is an Outdoors Queensland members, and if anyone else has any things you'd like to let us know about, I'm more than happy to give you a shameless plug on here or a chance to talk to the group as we go through, or just send me an email during the week or whatever in the lead up. Inside the outhouse, I don't think Pete's on the call today, but David certainly is rubbing it in that he's outdoors. If you want to join us, mate, if you want to talk about what's coming up on Inside the Outhouse or what you've been up to.
I don't know if you can hear me, Dom. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, mate.
All right. Yeah. Just coming off a 4-day program out on Moreton with some year 10s, bushwalking, out there doing the job. Been a busy week. We've had International Week in the outhouse. Monday was Alan from South Africa, one of our regular attendees, presented the South African viewpoint on Out the Red, a little bit of their history, how they're developed and were going great guns up until COVID, and what it's looking like now during the ongoing outbreak and COVID period is still affecting a lot of Out the Red in South Africa. So that's already up on the socials. Give that a whirl. It's a great presentation, really informative, and a perspective that not many of us have ever seen or heard about South Africa and how they frame it slightly differently, but there's a lot of similarities. And then Tuesday morning, very early, before I went on program, on my way to program, myself, Pete and Cherie all got into a Zoom webinar as guests, not as hosts, which is a bit of a change for us. We were interviewed for coffee and cocktails from the AORE, so AOR, as they're called, the Association of Outdoor Recreation and Education. They basically had a connection through Cherie and interviewed us about how community has been building here through the COVID period around Outdoor Ed, and about our relationship and our outdoor journey ourselves, and also how COVID has affected or not affected Outdoor Ed in Queensland. we gave big shout outs to Outdoors Queensland and Outdoors New South Wales and ACT for all the work they've been doing in the background, and laid out some really good models that we've seen that's allowed me to be back at work, in May, whereas a lot of our American colleagues are not, unfortunately. So that link is now live, but I don't know if it's gone out on socials yet, but hopefully later today it'll be on Facebook and YouTube and various portals. You can be able to reach out and see us. Being interviewed by a much bigger organisation. Their organisation has about, I want to say 12,000 paid members across the states, and they focus predominantly on universities, outdoor rec programs within the universities, military programs, but also a lot of camp and outdoor rec programs as well. So they're one of the two peak bodies in the States. So that's the International Week in a wrap for the week. And I've been international by being out on Moreton Island, which is a long way from Brisbane. So,
You've been overseas, mate.
I hope you heard all that.
Yeah, no, I got all that. You've been overseas on Moreton as well. So, Dave, before you go, or if you are going, what about the next session? I think it's the 17th of May.
Yeah, we've got another session in 2 weeks, and I think I'm pretty certain from the top of my head, we're going back to our the one that got cancelled. So Matthew's going to be our guest speaker in 2 weeks. The date eludes me right now, but in 2 weeks' time, Matthew will be back inside the outhouse, and we'll be talking all things outdoor ed and disability support and the stuff that's coming and being developed in that area. So it should be exciting. So tune in 6:15, first and third Monday of the month.
Terrific. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so that'll be the 17th of May for anyone who wants to join in. And I think Matthew might even be on the call today. Yeah, I just saw Matthew's there. So that'll be good to have Matthew talking about all things inclusivity and accessibility in the outdoors. So thanks, David. And if you were on that ferry when you were doing the international cross to the group, you probably would have done a good ad for tourism in Australia if you'd managed to do that on the ferry, mate. But yeah, it's good to see, mate, and well done on getting out there and doing the expedition you've just done. And Mark's just added the link to Inside the Outhouse there, the website, so that's there if anyone wants to access that. I just wanted to mention Brisbane City Council have opened up consultation in relation to the Anstead Bushland, which is also Anstead Bushland Reserve, but also Mount Crosby Park. So there's currently a picnic area at these sites and also walking and horse riding. They are looking for people to complete an online survey, and they're developing a concept plan for that site or the sites. I think it's three different, there's actually I think there's two aspects to the Anstead Bushland. There's a southern section and that's down towards Mount Crosby, on Mount Crosby Road, and Anstead, so, or Pullen Vale. So yeah, it's worth having a look at that one if you're interested in that. I just saw Gavin's on there. Gavin, were you aware of that work that Brisbane's doing in relation to that one? There is some bushwalking tracks, I think, in there, but they're pretty broad. I think they're like fire breaks and that sort of thing.
No, this is just the first time I've been made aware of it, so I'll get into it.
Yeah, it'd be worth a look from Bushwalking Queensland's point of view. We put something, I think, in the bulletin that Mark sent out this week, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention it today as well. And yeah, there's just an opportunity, and maybe if you guys can have a look at it, and yeah, I think we'll probably put in a submission or fill in their survey as well. But yeah, just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. So yeah, I think they said it closes the 1st of June, but I also saw on the website, I think it said Sunday the 6th of June, so I'm not sure. That was in the website. They sent us an email about the 1st of June, so I maybe try to aim for that as far as promoting it, I suppose. Yeah, and there is more information. Mark just shared that link to the story we put up on our website. So yeah. That's about it for that world. I guess we're over to the good old world of what's going on in the COVID restrictions. The roadmap hasn't been updated since our session a fortnight ago, but the public health direction has been updated. So that was released as either Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. They put out a new public health direction, and we're now at number 19. And one of the key changes for us, particularly in the outdoor ed space, is that self-service buffet food service is now allowed for businesses that aren't restricted businesses under the definitions there. And we've asked for clarification on that from Queensland Health in the context of school camp operators. We haven't got an answer yet. My take on it, I think that school camp operators are restricted businesses under the terms of it, under the short-term accommodation stuff, because otherwise we wouldn't need an industry plan. But happy to have a discussion about that one. We've been trying to get more information about that and waiting on an answer from that from Queensland Health, and I've tried to let them know that it is an important consideration. But I just wanted to recap a little bit the changes that were introduced previously under that number 18, the previous public health direction, which was that outdoor rec activities and outdoor sports no longer fall within that restricted category. So they specifically said that indoor sport and indoor recreation are still within the restricted category. And I still think that under the short-term accommodation, it says is still a restricted activity, which I think is where hard top outdoor ed operators fit. So that's sort of an interpretation. I'm still trying to get clarification on that, and we'll certainly let everyone know as soon as we know more on that. And the other big part under that change a couple of weeks ago was that outdoor events without dancing don't need a COVID safe event checklist or event plan. And you don't even need to collect contact tracing information for outdoor events anymore, as long as it's not like a music festival. So they've actually relaxed it quite a lot in relation to that. And the other one was about the Check-in Queensland app, which is mandatory for hospitality venues now. We've asked for clarification of that in the outdoor ed setting as well. And the new public health direction is actually quite specific, where it says if for hospitality businesses that are included in a certain section of the public health direction, and that includes retail food service, it says you've got to use the Check-in Queensland app. And I think the argument would be most outdoor ed centres aren't retail food service because the food provision is included in the package for the school. But again, we've asked for clarification on that. That's my take on it, but it seems to make sense. I think if you had a cafe on site at your venue and you were selling, coffees for whatever price, for people had to pay for those coffees, I think then that would be a retail food service aspect of your business, which would need to use the app for that bit. But I think if you were just providing, coffee free at that spot as part of the package of accommodation, then I'm thinking you wouldn't need to do it, but you still could if you wanted to. So does anyone want to have a quick chat about that?
Yeah, we had that call from Department of Small Business, et cetera, Alphabet Soup, that basically they confirmed that it was not mandatory for us to use it, and that we just need to keep going with the contact tracing in our industry plan.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think, I've actually asked for that pretty much exact clarification from Queensland Health, just to make sure that that's the right advice, and just want to make sure so we can put something out to everyone. But I think it makes sense that we've got the contact tracing requirements in the plan. It doesn't really make sense to replicate that again in a different way with the app, particularly where it isn't actually all that useful for our groups of participants. So it has certainly relaxed a lot in relation to outdoor rec activities and events, but we still need to get a bit more certainty in relation to outdoor ed space. So we're chasing that up as quickly as we can. I think I've sort of gone through this one on the outdoor rec activity industry plan. It's actually not required anymore, but there's no, like you can still use it if you want to follow those the protocols, and that's partly about ensuring people have confidence in the services you're providing and those sort of things. The return to play guide still talks about the full contact is allowed when engaged in the activity or on the field of play. And it specifically says you don't have to collect contact tracing information if you're an outdoor-based organisation. That obviously doesn't apply for the outdoor ed side of things because there's still the accommodation aspects of it. So the key part is still continuing to promote physical distancing, the hygiene measures for the hand hygiene and also the respiratory hygiene, and any cleaning processes that are in place. So those still apply, and they apply to generally under the public health direction and the roadmap. So I think those things are probably the key parts of that. I think the COVID safe messages, even if you don't have to follow an industry plan, I think they're still an interesting, or it's an important messaging that we need to put out there for people. So yeah, that's a key part of that. And the outdoor ed providers, as I said last time, we got the plan got updated on the 6th of April, so that was great to see, and that means that we can have staff servicing multiple groups where required to do so. Toilet facilities can be shared by different client groups. Still trying to avoid sharing of showers and change rooms. And then there was also about the option to follow the either the retail food services plan or the hotel clubs and nightclubs industry plan. So, and that's for food preparation, cleaning, hygiene and sanitisation protocols. So that's a bit of a change that has come through, which is good. I think I missed. So I think I missed something in there that about the commingling of groups. So that's actually changed a little bit. It gives a bit of margin for error if groups do wander across different areas. It's not as hard and fast now in there. We're still working with Sport and Rec in relation to the update of the outdoor ed plan. So that shouldn't be too far away, but I'm not too sure how long it'll take to get that updated to line up with the public health direction.
Can I ask a question? Like, if there's an update, is that self-serve issue included in that? Because all our catering teams are basically pouring the ground.
Yeah, I've asked for that to be included.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get that piece through, but I've certainly, even like this week, I followed them up and said, with this change that came through Saturday morning, I think it was, is that going to then flow through into the outdoor ed plan? So I've asked that specifically. Haven't got an answer on that yet. And I think, I dare say Queensland Health are probably getting quite a few of those queries, and it's interesting because there weren't really a lot of changes for quite a while, and then there's been, in the last 3 weeks, I guess, there's been a couple of pretty big changes that have come through, and even the actual public health direction, I'm sure not everyone's reading it every single day, but if you have a look at it, it's actually changed significantly, even in the format in the latest version of it. They've gone from a table that just had a couple of columns, and I think they're trying to make it clearer. It's now got about 4 columns and trying to explain what they're saying in a better way. So I think Queensland Health is trying to get that information out there better, but part of that for us is also about having them explain how that works for our specific part of it in relation to school camps and outdoor education in general. So that's a piece of work that I think it still needs, we need answers on it, and I've been chasing them up. But I guess the other part that they're possibly a little bit preoccupied with is possibly what's going on down in New South Wales at the moment with the outbreak that seems to be going on down there, and they've got new restrictions that have just come in overnight, I think, or maybe this morning. So yeah, there's a bit of stuff going on in that space, and obviously the key part for us is about making sure we're not affected by those changes. But yeah, we'll certainly keep on the bandwagon, Andrew, in relation to all of those changes that we've been chasing up.
It's just the last change took, from November through to April.
I know, mate.
We're week 3, term 2. It'd be lovely to have it before, because realistically, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have schools coming through who are going to go, well, we can do self-service at the canteen. Why can't we do it here? So.
Yeah, it specifically includes schools in the explanatory section on the Queensland government website. They specifically include, I think it says schools, workplaces. There was a third one, which was, it was a bit of an odd list. Mark and I were looking at it the other day, and that's another funny one, which I've actually raised, is some of the state government, the education department, outdoor ed centres are actually officially schools. So the likes of Tinaroo, and Phil Harrison's joined us for a few of these sessions. Phil's a principal at a school which happens to be an outdoor ed centre. And it says on the government website, schools can do self-service buffets, but it doesn't, I don't know how that applies. So I've asked that exact question because they've used schools as an example of one of the places that can do self-service buffets. So I'm guessing we need to think about, in that context. I've specifically asked for that because it would seem odd if the Queensland government outdoor ed centres who happen to be classified as schools can do it. And I don't know, but maybe on that basis, if you were a school that has an outdoor ed campus, that's part of your school. I don't know if you'd then say you can do that there. I think it's stretching it a little bit, but it doesn't seem right that then an organisation that runs a school camp separately, that has a school group in as a client, can't use the same protocols. If it's safe for a school, I don't understand how it's not safe in an outdoor ed setting. But
well, the third one that you couldn't remember, the third one, incredibly, it's residential aged care. Now, aren't they the highest risk category?
Is it? Yeah, that's so.
It's residential aged care.
Yeah, so that's what I did say to you. It was strange. Yeah, so I guess, and I don't know, but maybe they're thinking that they're getting to the point of being immunised or vaccinated. But I don't know, mate. I'm really trying to find out the answers and get a bit more information. But yeah, they certainly have been the key group that has been protected all the way through, and with good reason. So I guess it's about, surely applying the same sort of logic to what our space is and what we like to, I guess we've very much had that support from the Chief Health Officer about making sure that we're not forgotten in this stuff. So, and that's why we have our industry plan. I think they've accepted that. So it's certainly something we'll keep on chasing up. Are there other questions on any of those ones, of the particularly the outdoor ed plan? I think it's, I'm going to say like that, the updated direction last weekend sort of caught me on the fly a bit. We didn't have any notice about a change to it, the updated version. So it was one of okay, let's work out what this means and how it applies. So it's certainly something that we need to get on top of, and working through Sport and Rec and also into Queensland Health to understand the impacts of it. I'd like to think we can get to that point, but I still want to, I'm very conscious of the length of time it took to get those other changes approved, and trying to make sure it's certainly not dragging out like that again, as much as we can. All right. I did have COVID safe events on the topic there, but I think realistically now those are, like, it's not necessary for outdoor events. If you have indoor aspects on events, then you do have to follow the COVID safe framework for for events, but for outdoor events, like I said earlier, it's pretty much, you don't even have to do contact tracing work anymore unless you choose to. But yeah, there's a whole lot of information on the government website about events too, so certainly worth having a look at that. The other one, actually at the mountain bike forum last week, I spoke to Simon and Robin from Into Adventure, who are event organisers, and they've got an event coming up, and they've already done all their planning based on the industry plan. So they just said to me, oh, they were still going to go ahead and use those same protocols, partly because they'd already submitted it all, but they also said to me they weren't sure that all the land managers out there are aware of these changes in relation to the events. So they just wanted to make sure, and so to be on the safe side, they're going to follow all the protocols, even though technically they could probably resubmit their whole management plan or their event management plan and change how they're going to do it and still be compliant with the latest protocol, with the latest public health direction. But they said, well, they also want to make sure that all their competitors in their event are comfortable, so they're still going to go ahead with the same sort of protocols as they would have before these relaxations.
Dom, can I just ask a question about the mountain bike forum?
Yes, mate.
Yeah, I'll just leave my camera off at the moment because it's easier than me to hear you. Was there any discussion about ongoing training for existing facilitators, outdoor educators within the vet package? Because it seems like every year we get one opportunity through Sunshine Coast TAFE to go and do a course. It's invariably in the middle of a peak period for work. And so people make choices, such as myself and others, to, one, not get the qual, so therefore they don't get the ticket because they would sooner take the work that's on offer that week, as opposed to, I'm wondering if there was any discussions around training and when training should be happening and what training should be actually relevant to most of the mountain biking programming that happens in the southeast.
Yeah, then we didn't have a dedicated session on it, but we certainly did have a discussion about it, particularly in relation to what the accreditation courses that Oz Cycling are doing, which is now MTBA as part of Oz Cycling. So they have their own levels of coaching, which is an accreditation system for that side of things. The stuff that the Sunshine Coast TAFE, or I think it's East Coast, whatever, the Sunshine Coast TAFE do, is actually under the VET system. There's also, we've been working with Active Queenslanders industry about trying to get just some skill sets training done through RTOs and getting that subsidised. That hasn't been approved yet by the Department of Small Business and Training yet, but we're working on that as well, about trying to get some just specific skill sets, and that would mean that it could be delivered in a more cost-effective way or less cost to participants. And it means you can just do a skill set or rather than doing a full qual and get it subsidised. So we're working on that as well.
Yeah, because I noticed, and probably most people noticed, a lot of free courses being offered in New South Wales earlier in the year, but you had to be a resident and you possibly needed to not have a higher level qualification such as a diploma or a degree to qualify for that funding. I'm not sure about that. I'm not a resident, so I didn't look into it, but you sort of you become a bit envious of other states when funding for that type of skill set, which is sometimes in high demand and sometimes precludes me from working on a program that might have mountain biking or being the mountain biking lead instructor. And it just seems to be about funding and logistics more often than not. Lots of people are, I think, interested in getting the quals. I'm on the ferry here with 3 or 4 people who are mad keen mountain bikers who are outdoor educators, but they probably don't have the qual in any form. So it's a bit of a gap, I think.
No, it is. And Mark's just put a comment. I'm not sure if you want to speak to this, Mark, but he said we've put all our staff through level 0 MTBA qual. Managed to get enough people, including a few outsiders, that they sent the trainer to their site and did it on their tracks, which is pretty awesome. So Did you want to speak about that at all, Mark?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm happy to say a couple of things. I didn't organise it personally. I, in fact, was one of the participants in the qualification, but it was just before they changed their. So I don't think it was. No, it was through Mountain Biking Australia. But in essence, yeah, we just jumped. Our owner connected with them and said, we want to do this training. We can host it, and so then they promoted it through their networks as well. And so got people from around the region to come and do the training here. So we provided the venue and whatnot, put our staff through. It was pretty economical. It was only the level 0. I mean, it doesn't get you particularly high up the qualifications, but it enables you to be an instructor with people who haven't done mountain biking before. So it's just a very low basic stuff. It was only a couple of $100 per participant for the training. It was a full day here. There was an online component, and then you got a textbook to take, like that was yours to take at the end as well. I could probably dig up some links and stuff to what we did.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, and I'm not sure with the changeover from MTBA into Oz Cycling. I know that that is still a focus for them as far as getting more people out there at getting those quals. So that might be one way of also achieving it, David. But yeah, I think there is still. We're certainly working on those skill set stuff, but the MTBA or Oz Cycling quals are also to be considered.
Does the new organisation's qualifications match to the vet qualifications, or are they again reinventing the wheel and creating their own standard?
They have had their own system for quite a while. So MTBA always had their own system of the coaching. Well, I don't think they use the word coaching. It used to be called mountain bike coaching quals, but yeah, so they're basically for instructors. They've always had their own, bit like Paddle Australia had their own, or have their own session as well, their own system. But the good bit is, like, under the adventure activity standards, it doesn't limit it to vet or to tertiary. It talks about wherever you get your quals, how that applies. So they're certainly applicable. There is that crossover. And I think the stuff that Camp Kirby did, that's great, as far as you can still, as an organisation, valuing what's available from MTBA or Oz Cycling or from anywhere else. I think that it should still be recognised right across the industry, particularly with things like MTBA. And I think Mark's just added a link there to the to the training there that's in the chat. So
if you scroll down, it's got level 0, level 1, level 2, so on and so forth down there.
Yeah. So I think, maybe that's something we need to add into those sessions for future as well, because we talked about it a little bit, but it was more about just within the context of the adventure activity standards and the qualifications. And I think a lot of the audience we had on the day on Friday was mostly clubs and land managers and council staff, which was great to see particularly. So yeah, it was probably more that context rather than the outdoor ed context of mountain biking.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. That was an interesting point.
Yeah, no worries, Dave. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other topics you wanted to talk about? We're actually running well ahead of time today, which is odd. Yeah, I guess the other one I did have on the agenda, which I haven't got on that agenda, is one thing I did want to just put out there is a bit of a review of these sessions. So particularly the frequency of them, whether at some point we go to having them monthly. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess today's probably an example where we've sort of got through most of the agenda in a bit over half an hour. I just saw Matthew just popped up. He's got something to discuss here. Matthew, I'm happy to throw to you, and you guys can have a think about a review of these sessions. Matthew?
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're keeping warm in sunny Queensland. So, been really cold on the other day. Yeah, I find it really interesting if I was asking what everybody experienced through the COVID and try to recover COVID in relation to paid employment and trainees or volunteer in one of your outdoor businesses, because we're hearing over the news all the time about short staff, but they cannot afford new staff, but they make everybody really busy in a job. Like somebody that eco-tourism operator, they have really short staff that can't afford, and they have so many people in the group, and it's really restricting all that movement and stuff. I'm not sure if anyone have that experience.
Yeah, I think staffing has been a real challenge, and it's interesting. I think a lot of businesses, I think, have exactly what you said, Matthew, had challenges getting staff, and sometimes it's also reflects on the business models that have been in place where people, particularly in the outdoor world, would often, I know David's probably a good example, would often do interstate work, and obviously that came to a screaming halt last year. Even when things did start opening up, we still had hard borders in place for quite a while. So yeah, I think a key part of that is actually having qualified, experienced staff who can fill in, but it's also about the business models that are out there, I think, and also making sure volunteers are engaged. Mark, did you have a comment on that one?
Sorry, chiming in again. I know none of you guys actually know me, but hi anyway. I was at the Australian Camps Association conference a couple of weeks ago, and this was a significant topic of discussion there. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but what they identified was a couple of things that have changed in terms of staffing with the whole COVID thing and the unique situation that Australia has of being one of the few places that are actually back running camps and that sort of thing. And they identified that a lot of people had left the industry when, because it tends to be a transient staff, tends to be casual staff in some places. So when they couldn't get JobKeeper, a lot of people left the industry and went to other things. The other thing they identified was that we don't have the usual international staff that come in on visas and those sorts of things. So there was people from all states there, and everyone was saying staffing shortages was a significant issue for them, and no one really had any solutions. I think people were scrabbling to try to train the staff that they did have on site.
Yeah, and it seems, from what I've heard, it was a really good conference too. But it seems on that one, it seems like it is that a lot of people who've left the outdoor industry haven't just returned, just because camps have opened up again. It hasn't been an automatic, those people come straight back to the outdoor sector, which is obviously a big challenge. So yeah, that's an interesting aspect of that, of what is going on with our workforce right across the whole sector. And that's a big concern, I think, for volunteer organisations as well, as far as once volunteers get out of the habit of volunteering, sometimes you never see them again. So that's a bit of an aspect that I know is playing out in the sporting world. They're facing real issues with volunteers. I don't know that it's as bad in our world, and I don't think we stopped for quite as long as some of the sports clubs, but it's certainly a concern that we need to keep an eye on.
Another thing to keep an eye on as well is where the minimum wage are quite expensive. We're at the part of it now because we have higher bills in everything else. So that's why they also saying short staff, but they have capacity to hire the other staff, but they can't afford it because the wage is too high, because the other expenses are way too high, especially insurance that we always talk about, why it's so expensive. So that's another bigger barrier there to get really forward for the community.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also the underemployment part of it, where people are getting some work but not enough work is the other challenge there. You're right, Matthew, about the other bills and the costs of insurance and everything else that's that's going on that business owners need to consider, and it's certainly challenging in relation to getting those things happening.
That's like self-serve. Having to do not being allowed to do self-serve costs us 25% extra in wages for our hospitality areas. There's an example.
Yeah. And Aaron's just popped a question in the chat, or a comment in the chat. So there is the Outdoor Council of Australia running a national summit in a couple of weeks' time, and that's certainly on the topic, is about what we can do for the outdoors sectors, and that's looking at all the different aspects of the outdoors, about what are the key drivers and the key issues, but what are possible solutions. So, well, thanks, David. David's managed his voyage across. So thanks for joining us today, mate, from the ferry, and look forward to seeing you again soon. So the Outdoor Council National Summit, and we've tried to get people from right across the country to join into that session, which is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. So there's that's coming up, and it's certainly an opportunity to talk about some of those issues. And I'll certainly take some of what we've talked about in these sessions, but also some of the other conversations I've had into that, as far as trying to contribute to those discussions. And I'm currently the president of the Outdoor Council of Australia. We've got our AGM next week, so that could change depending on the will of the board and the members. But hopefully I'll still be the president of that in a week's time. But and Aaron's other question there was about, or comment was, there's been a number of outdoor educators moving into further study in higher education for career development, which is very true. That's certainly been happening quite a lot in the world of outdoor education. So there's a lot of that going on, which is great to see, as long as those people aren't lost to the outdoor sector once they do the extra study. You sort of want to retain that cross section, and particularly the people who are doing those extra skills, or getting those extra skills and qualifications still within our sector. Just checking there, Andrew's just said the first cohort of Bachelor of Outdoor Education students graduate from USC at the end of this year. So that'll be an interesting injection into the workforce too. Those students will have had a different learning experience to a lot of people, I think, after the way tertiary education has been disrupted in the last year. So that'll be good to see those students coming through and into the workforce. And Aaron's also talked about transition from freelancing into teaching, and that's a big topic on its own. I think there's a whole lot of work that has to go into that sort of process. Has anyone got any other topics you want to talk about, or further on those ones?
Yeah, Dom, I had a meeting with the senior policy advisor of the Minister for Environment last week. It was quite an interesting meeting.
Yeah.
And one of the proposals is that they're going to, QPWS, have a trails master plan for the whole of Queensland.
They talked about that a while back, Gavin, and nothing happened with it. But so it's back on the agenda, is it?
Yeah, well, I've now been waiting for an email to get the actual meeting with the minister, but they said it's a good idea now that TMR put out their walking strategy, that they need to put out a trail strategy.
Ah, good. Okay. Yeah, that's really good development. So, yeah, I think obviously we'll want to have some engagement about that, and maybe we invite someone from QPWS who's involved in that to come along and speak to one of these sessions about it, because I think that's the sort of thing that we need to have, that sort of discussion. We've done a bit of work on the stock routes, which is a ridiculously big trails network on its own right across Queensland, and that probably needs to be considered in that as well. So yeah, that sounds like a good development. It would have been 2 or 3 years ago that was a trail strategy was talked about, but maybe it's because TMR have done the other strategy that's actually made a difference. Maybe that spurred them on to do a whole trail strategy.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
another thing was I canvassed the issue of rail trails in Queensland, and suggested that the Queensland Parks and Wildlife take them over as conservation parks, and that was well received.
right.
That was well
Yeah.
received because QBWS's visitor management is a lot better than TMR's.
Yeah, well, the rail trails, it's been an interesting process. I think the BVRT stuff that TMR's been doing, they've certainly put a lot of effort into that just recently. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens there, because national parks, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that would work with them for the rail trails, because obviously they'd struggle with a different tenure, but it can happen under their legislation. So yeah, be happy to find out more about that too, because as long as, I guess the big problem for them will be the budget, as long as they've got money to actually manage it well, it could happen. So it's always a bit scary when more things get pushed onto parks. So I think they're always working against budgetary constraints as it is. So yeah, but that's definitely a good one to keep an eye on. So yeah.
Yeah, well, also it was indicated that they are looking for more land to put under Queensland Parks and Wildlife. So
yeah, so one of their objectives, I think it was about expanding parks from I think it's about 8% of the state now to about 16 or 17% was one of the election promises. So yeah, they're supposed to always be on the lookout for properties. And the big thing that I think we probably need to keep an eye on is it's not just, a great big cattle property somewhere that isn't much value from a conservation point of view, but also from a recreation point of view, that we want national parks that are have high conservation value, and also, well, they don't meet the criteria, but also having accessibility for everyone in relation to public access and outdoor activities. So yeah, I think that's always on the agenda there for QPWS, and sounds good. But yeah, good work on that. Be interested to hear how your meeting with the minister goes. Yeah, but yeah, hello.
Can you hear me there?
Yep.
Good morning to you, to Mark, and to everyone up there in sunny Queensland from sunny Melbourne.
Hi, Joe.
I'm sitting here in the ACA, Australian Camps Association office, having found out from Jess just half an hour ago that you folk are actually meeting up there every fortnight for a coffee and a conversation, which is a wonderful idea. So I clicked to register for your meeting in 2 weeks' time, and it took me to today. So here I am. But what I might do is, if it's possible, Dom, just foreshadow perhaps joining you in a fortnight's time to talk about the work that's happening around the quality tourism framework and the committee that the Australian Camps Association has put together in combination with the Australian Tourism Industry Council to, in effect, review where we're at with the QTF accreditation, including the camps and outdoor adventure component of it. So if that sounds like a reasonable thing to brief people on in a fortnight's time, I'd be delighted to do it for you.
Yeah, that'd be great if you're happy to join us then, Joe, and add it into the agenda. If you want to send me through even a couple of slides or something, I'm more than happy to add that into the presentation, or yeah, we can sort that out. So that'd be great to have you join us. Yeah, I'm actually catching up with Pete next week when he's up here in Brisbane too. So Pete Griffiths is the CEO of the Australian Camps Association. And Mark gave you guys a shameless plug earlier because he went along to the conference, to your national conference a couple of weeks ago, and was saying some of the good conversations that were held there. So we actually were talking about the ACA just before.
Oh, actually,
yeah.
Why didn't I bump into Mark then and catch up among the 150, 160 people that we had there? So a shameless plug, you reckon?
Yeah, no, he was just mentioning the quality of conversations at the conference, particularly regarding the workforce and the issues around attracting workers at the moment across the camp sector. So,
well, given where everybody's been in the last 12 months, it really was quite an amazing gathering, and the feedback has been phenomenal, and a good job done in terms of people making that commitment. But I think it's got to be recognised that the board of the ACA committed very, very heavily to getting people out of their campsites and their businesses to be together, because the deal was unmissable. It was $116 for 2 days of conferencing, including morning and afternoon teas and the conference dinner. So good luck trying to fund a conference of that scale at an RACV sort of 5-star resort. Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Worked well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you're happy to join us in a couple of weeks, yeah, definitely. If you want to email me through some info, Jess has got my email address, and yeah, zip it through, and we'll add that in for next time, and that'd be good to have you join us.
That'd be great, Dom. Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
No worries at all. And on that, there's the next session is on Friday the 21st of May. So I actually got the date right on my last slide for once. Normally I forget to update that one, but yeah, so that's in a fortnight's time, and yeah, we'll look forward to seeing everyone there. Has anyone else got any other very quick ones? We've got a couple of minutes left, but if not, well, I'm not going to give you a funny joke this week. I've run out of funny jokes. Mark would be sad to know that, but I'm sure everyone here has probably told my good joke about last week about why dinosaurs make such awful pets, which is because they're extinct. I'll just leave you on that reminder of last week's funny joke, and you can use that and think of me. So on that hilarious note, we'll head off, and yeah, I look forward to seeing plenty of people in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks a lot. See you all.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.